think it depends on the child and the parents. I think you'll begin to know the type of parents that you're dealing with, and obviously you'd not perhaps know if the parents do smoke, and then you'd be able to know sort of how to approach the parent about it at the end of the day. So I think it really depends.
I think no school that you go into is going to actually have a rule physically displayed that says, children, please do not bring your cigarettes into this classroom. So I think you need something to compare it to. So, for example, that like football cards and things like that, right? Everything out of everybody's pocket has to go in their drawer at the start of every single lesson. So obviously if he's got cigarettes in the playground, you can't let him have that because the other children aren't allowed their playing cards and things like that. So you could compare it to that and then say, well, if mummy wants them, she can collect them from me at the end of the day.
There's no actual harm in them bringing them to school.
Yeah.
So I think it would definitely need...
so you need to distinguish they're not allowed in school at all anyway.
Yeah, and perhaps a comparison of other things that children aren't allowed, like so alcohol, things, do you know what I mean, that are not...
Just making clear that they are not appropriate in school.
Yeah.
And that,
and a year 6 child would understand that as well. Appropriateness is a big thing because they do it a lot in their PSHE lessons.
And stuff, and they actually look at like solvents and things like that, don't they? So it could be then brought up as a PSHE subject. But I think as an NQT, if you didn't feel confident enough in approaching the subject, because you may not know the parents very well, or I think you should go to your head teacher and discuss it with them first and raise it with them, or your mentor, and discuss it with them and say, this is the situation, how do I handle it? Because it's...
I think the only thing with something like that is I think if you've seen a year 6 child on the playground with the cigarettes and they're refusing to give them up to you, that confrontation needs to be resolved before anything else. So it might mean somebody else that's on duty with you will go and support you, and they'll be able to reaffirm what you're saying. So it's not just you and the child having a confrontation.
You need to be very careful because it's cigarettes and it's year 6.
Yeah.
Some of the other children, if a massive deal is made out of it, it may become the cool thing to do in school, sort of, oh, well, I've got my mum's cigarettes today, oh, well, look what I managed to sneak out today. So I think it does need to be dealt with, and it needs to be made clear that this isn't suitable. But I think it needs to be dealt with sensitively.
It's difficult because as soon as you alienate the child, it's easy for them to shut down and just close off and go, I'm not going to talk to you, why should I tell you anything? And then you've just lost a person in your class, whether that be actually lost them so they're excluded or whether they won't join in anymore.
I think, me personally, I would have to tell a senior member of staff, whether it be the head teacher, the deputy, you'd have to make somebody aware of it. So at the end of the day,
even the parent,
cigarettes in school, it's a big thing, isn't it?
You've got to hope that the parent's not advocating that the child takes the cigarettes.
You have to make somebody aware.
But even if they were, it's still, you've reported it through the correct
and you've done what you meant to do.
I think you've also got to be truthful with the child. I don't think you can lie to them. I don't think you can say, well, I'm not going to tell your parents if you are. I think you've got to be quite truthful, because if then you go away and tell their parents, they're never going to trust you again.
No, of course not,
So I think you've got to be really truthful and honest about what's going to happen now.
I don't think it should be approached just you with the parents either. If it went so far as I personally think you would have to tell the parents, and I don't think it should just be a teacher-parent conversation. As far as I'm concerned, I would always have that backup and support.
I think parents often are quite wanting to know, because actually in my placement last year I was in the year 6 class, and it's slightly different to cigarettes. We were doing an experiment on dissolving, and one of the children came out with that looks like that white powder that you sniff, implying cocaine, and I had a problem with all the other children were asking what it is, so I just ignored it because I was teaching this, and I said, okay, we'll talk about this another day, it doesn't matter, let's carry on with the thing. So at the end I went to the class teacher and said, look, this happened, what do we do? So we rang up the parents and they came in, and I said, oh look, this child said this, and I asked him at the end of the lesson, he said that he's seen older children do it in the park. So they were really grateful that we'd said, and she said, don't worry, I'm not going to tell my son off, I'm just going to make sure that if he goes to the park, I'm going to follow him and see who he's hanging around with. So I think in some circumstances it is essential that you tell the parents, if you know they're not always going to be angry at you, they're obviously concerned about their children as well, so it's important that they know so they can look out for a home.